before I realized I had to be recording. Great. Well, I think we're doing that. So, yeah, Janice, you kind of want to introduce yourself?
I'm Janice Cranville. I live in Alpine, Utah. This is my second choice trip. I did Kenya last year with Jordan, and that's it. My son is also coming on the trip, wasn't able to come tonight.
And Daniel's your son.
Yes.
How's Daniel? What's he up to?
He's 32. Not up to a whole lot.
Sounds like someone I know, myself.
He's a super great guy. Has no Spanish, but he has been trying to do the Spanish for Dummies CDs. So, of course, he'll be fluent in another month, I'm sure.
Yep.
And that's it.
Good. And this is not kind of your first rodeo with heading out traveling oftentimes alone, right? Do you kind of want maybe just add a few little context?
I love traveling. Yeah, last year before the Kenya trip, I went through South Africa a little bit just on my own. I sometimes travel with a girlfriend or a small group, but I'm very game to travel by myself as well. Love to travel.
Yeah, cool. Well, I traveled with Janice, and she was an absolute delight. We spent a lot of traveling hours together in safari buses and safari tents and everything in between. So you guys are in very seasoned, wise hands with Janice. And then who we got? We've got Shauna, I believe, on the phone. Are you still with us?
I am.
Awesome. Do you kind of want to introduce yourself and your crew?
Sure. I'm a mom of 2 teenage boys, and we'll be going on the expedition. I'm a pharmacist, and they're 2 football players. I don't know what else to say. 16 and 18.
They play high school football?
They do.
Are they any good at soccer?
They can try.
Well, let's see. Well, that's good. Are you guys planning to bring a football? Football is not a very common sport in Peru, but one that I know kids will love to learn how to play. That's for sure.
Maybe something a little less contact. Maybe a soccer ball would be good.
I think that's in everyone's interest. So, and Shauna, how did you guys get connected to Choice? And is this kind of the first time you, as a family, have done something like this?
Yes, it is. I initially was going to go on a trip to Ethiopia, but there was a little civil unrest. Since my husband's not going, he kind of put his foot down and said we couldn't go there. So he found Choice, and the rest is history. We're going to go to Peru.
Well, if it's not civil unrest in Ethiopia, it's devastating flooding in Peru.
I know.
I am glad we are marching forward, and that'll be kind of a unique part of our experience. But yeah, that's one of the challenges of the nature of the areas we work is there's usually something. So glad it worked out, and glad you guys are making it.
We are as well.
And where are you guys based out of?
California, Los Angeles.
Okay, great. Good. And let's see. So who else have we got calling in? I believe in Aubrey, right? Well, you might be muted.
Can you guys hear me? Yeah?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Sorry. Sometimes it works with the headphones, sometimes it doesn't. So I am a senior at Westchester University. I am a nutrition major. What else about me? I heard about Choice through Feel Good, which, if not all of you know, Feel Good is like a nationwide nonprofit youth movement at colleges. There's 25 chapters. And we raise money through the sales of grilled cheese and other like social enterprises. And we raised money for 4 different organizations, and Choice is one of them. So I heard about the trip through Feel Good, and I ended up doing all of these like chapter recruitment things to earn a badge, to win a chance to be entered in like a drawing to have my my like entrance fee, program fee, like paid for the Choice trip. And I ended up winning, which is very exciting. So yeah, so I'm very excited. This actually isn't my first a broad volunteering experience. Last summer, I spent 3 weeks in South Africa doing medical work. So I'm very excited. This is a big trip for me.
Cool.
So yeah. Thanks.
I'm jealous. I've never won any of those things that you won. You know, I don't win raffles. I don't win radio call-ins. I'm always excited when I see someone who did. It gives me hope.
Yeah, it's exciting. I'm very happy about it.
And awesome work with Feel Good. I've known Feel Good for a really long time, and Feel Good has done amazing work for Choice Humanitarian now for almost over 10 years, I want to say, or close to it. And they're all their chapters are able to channel a lot of important resources to Choice. And we've had a lot of amazing people from the Feel Good community come through the Choice organization, including Peggy, who we'll talk about in a minute. I want to take a minute and let Chris from our team introduce himself. You've seen his name on emails, but he's on our expeditions team. I'll let him introduce himself.
Greetings, everyone. Yeah, this is Chris Phillips, coordinator. I'm going to be listening and watching from my office right over there as I'm processing more applications. But yeah, you've probably seen my name in emails, and you'll probably see it again. But I just wanted to say hi and wish you all a great expedition and tell you how jealous I am, because this is one I'd really like to go on.
Cool. And we've got, it looks like someone else who hopped on. Someone else hop on right now. I am not sure who that might be. Afrodox. Maybe a fun nickname or something. Or we'll let them introduce themselves then when they're ready, or when that's maybe sorted out. But with that, I might scroll down a little bit. I'm going to highlight the agenda for a moment, and then I want to do some intros to Peggy and Gabriella, who are your trip leaders. And Gabriella's on her way in. She was here in the office just a moment ago and had to actually head out to attend to something real quick. So she sends her apologies for coming in late, but she will be joining us. So I just put this up here so everyone can kind of see what we're going to talk about. And Shauna, for you, we're going to cover a quick bit on Choice Humanitarian, focus mainly on the trip and the overview of the itinerary, and get a little bit into the projects, and also some updates and context for the flood and how that is going to play a role in the trip. And then just highlight a few things about the expedition experience that make this, a non-traditional way to get out. And we want to just point to a few things. And then the rest of the time is really for questions around packing and registration and anything like that. So that said, I am going to just move this so we can see a little bit. That might work. Wonderful. So as for myself, I'm Jordan. You've emailed or corresponded with me maybe at some point, but I have been involved with Choice for a long time on the Expeditions program. I've worked for the last year or so, and now I work more broadly just helping companies and people find ways to have an impact here at Choice, and Expeditions is a big part of that program. And I sadly am not going to be on this trip. I will, however, be in Peru next week on a different trip. So I'm less sad talking about Peru right now because I'm getting pretty excited to head out myself. But in my role, I do spend a lot of time working with and training and learning from all of our expedition leaders. And so I'm really happy to kind of introduce two of your leaders of the leadership team who is going to be going down with you. I'll maybe start with Peggy just because she is here, and then I'll let her introduce herself, and we'll see if Gabriella makes it in time for that. But I've known Peggy almost since I came back to Choice in an official capacity a few years ago. Peggy has not only been very helpful building out a lot of the feel-good partnerships that we already talked about, but is a natural leader. And it didn't take long to kind of identify that having Peggy involved in our program, given her experience, was a win-win-win for everyone. And so Peggy's been very active in our trip leadership and has spent time in Peru and time abroad in a lot of areas. And as I mentioned, has a natural talent for educating and facilitating what can be a really powerful learning experience. I think it's a real strong suit of Peggy's. So I was thrilled when it worked out to have her join this trip to Peru. And I'll let Peggy maybe share a little bit of context about kind of her background and how she got involved. And then Gabriella just came in, so we'll let her do the same in a moment.
Hi, everyone. So I'm so excited to be heading out on this trip with you all. I first got involved with Choice in 2009 as a student at the University of Vermont through Feel Good, which Aubrey talked about. And I then later joined Feel Good staff, and through that opportunity, I joined one of the Choice Nepal expeditions in 2014. And as Jordan mentioned, I've traveled to Peru, and I've traveled a ton internationally and spent a lot of time backpacking and camping and outdoors and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to go on this trip with you guys, and I'm involved with Choice because some of you know the model Choice goes by is very, very incredible. And it's just really awesome for a lot of us that don't work in international development every day to have these opportunities to connect with people on the ground and see the work that's happening. So I'm excited.
Awesome, Peggy. And I'm going to just do a quick note on Gabriella and then turn it over to her to introduce herself. So I've also known Gabriella for a very long time. She's been leading trips with Choice to Latin America. We have 5 countries in Latin America, and she's had a real specialty in Guatemala over the years. Not only is she a very detail-oriented leader, it's a particular skill set we hope to have on every team, but Gabriella has a real talent, as a Mexican national with native Spanish skill set. She's also a very effective legal and court interpreter. And as a result, she plays a really seamless role on all trips, bridging the gap between participants and the communities and also the in-country team. And so thrilled to have Gabriella be joining you guys on this trip. And with that, I'm going to just let her kind of introduce herself and maybe how or why she got involved with Choice.
Well, thank you, Jordan, for that kind introduction. That's really sweet of you. Yes, I joined Choice as my first connection with Choice was volunteering as an interpreter for the in-country directors. And I followed them for 2 weeks. And after that, I fell in love. And I always had a calling of doing service. So you can imagine how being a Choice expedition leader fit in with my life goals and morally, and just something that I've always wanted to, and it's been provided for me, and I would always be grateful for that. As a Choice expedition leader, I have come to learn that it's a calling. I enjoy it tremendously. There's not anything about it that I dislike. As a matter of fact, I'm always eager to go as many expeditions as I can. And a little bit about myself, I have 2 college students, and so I have a lot of time to travel. And so that makes it easier for me to be involved with Choice. I believe wholeheartedly in the mission of Choice, which is to, leave this world better than it's founded. And I think I echo that with all of the things that I do and participate with Choice. As an expedition leader, my main goal is to make sure that every person that joins our team finds what they're looking for as far as their experience. The experience that I have facilitates that, but also your input and your experience also enhances and enriches me for a better expedition every time I do that year after year. Like Jordan said, I have a lot of strong suits, but I am very passionate, and I think that carries through the entire expedition to help do the task and do the job that we're there. But we also, I try to make sure that all of the aspects of the expedition, that you're safe and you feel all of those things that you're looking for, I make it a point so that you can find that. And I hope that I know that you will find out with me, and I'm really thrilled and honored to serve you as your leader and to serve the people in Peru, which is why we're here for. Thank you for joining us.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I'm gonna, and maybe Janice, do you and Gabriella maybe want, or you could actually even sit there, so you're not even in the light, and that way we can loop her in. Well, you got some wonderful ladies heading out with you here, and I'm gonna just take a note. Whoops, I think we jumped on up there. To introduce, just briefly, a couple more folks who are going to be a really big part of this experience. So every trip obviously has kind of your two expedition leaders who really represent Choice Humanitarian Headquarters as being your liaison between here and our Peru team. And I'm going to introduce kind of how Choice functions very briefly. But part of that is core to our model is our in-country teams. And so every expedition is supported long before, entirely during, and long after this trip actually takes place by our team. And so I put them up here so that you guys kind of get a context already that you're going down with your expedition leaders, but plugging into a really strong infrastructure in country that's native and not naked. And local to the area. So the other reason that I put them up is just so that you guys know there's some core things that they're going to be responsible for. That's logistics, transportation, food, security, housing, and then of course all the project and community prep. That's part of a much bigger program. So they're going to wear an expedition team hat while they're down there, but that is not what they're doing 9 to 5, 24/7. First and foremost, they're really international development professionals. And I'll kind of build off of that just to comment briefly what Choice Humanitarian is we are an international development organization, been around for now 35 years, with a focus on building community leadership across 7 countries. And so how we do that is in every country, we have an in-country team, just like the team I mentioned in Peru, who you guys will get to know very well. They're a very fun team, a very approachable team. One of them, Carlos, speaks English pretty well. And so you'll get to meet him particularly well, I think. But in every country, our teams are essentially going through the same process. They're, as I mentioned, local and native to the areas. And many of them have been working with Choice in a development capacity for a very long time. And what they're doing is at any given point, they're working with 10 to 30, and actually in Nepal, for example, they're working with upwards of 1,000 communities at a time. And they're essentially training and organizing existing community leaders to design their own paths out of poverty. And they do that through a process that you guys are going to learn quite a bit about. But it's a process of really listening to community members, building capacity with communities, and then helping community members design their own programs around their own needs. And then the team really lends a lot of technical expertise to actually execute that project. That includes time, money, resources. And then there's an evaluation process, and then that kind of repeats. And so in every community, communities are kind of marching along in this process around core programs in our 5 core areas. And so every project and every country is going to look a little different, but generally with that model in place and those goals. And the real product of that model are empowered and educated community members who can carry that on long after we're gone, and also more relevantly designed and sustainable projects. And you guys are going to plug into that model with a twist a little bit. The reason I kind of mention that is expeditions are actually a really small part of what Choice does. So most communities that we work with will never see an expedition. But for those that do, we've learned over 35 years that there's a huge benefit when people from across the world collaborate together on a project that's being community managed in a sustainable way and in an appropriate way, because it's an insane catalyst of support, enthusiasm, and financial support that accelerates what a community is already doing. And then I think for those of you who've been out, and we'll all probably learn in our own ways, it's an amazing cultural exchange that is a two-way street that is very equal in nature. And so we've learned that this program of expeditions is key to the communities that receive it, and to also Choice's mission to educate those in different circumstances about what it means to be a global citizen. So really powerful. And just to let you guys know that the expedition program for us is also one of the larger drivers of project revenues. So I always like sharing with people kind of how the expedition fee is broken down. Your fee is going to cover all of your in-country expenses and food and transportation and all of that. And then a portion of it's going to actually go towards the specific project you're working on. And the remaining portion of that, about almost more than half, will go towards general project budgets that include Peru, but it also includes all of our other 7 countries. And so you're participating in a social business that is having a lot of impacts in many different ways, one of which you guys won't probably see is all the funding and support that will go on to communities and countries well outside of Peru. So it's, for us, it's a really sustainable source of achieving a lot of goals. With that, I might turn it over to Gabriela real quick to just, shed some light on what makes an expedition and maybe not just, your normal tour.
Right. It's not a normal tour. This is a humanitarian service that we're doing. And these are some of the things that we know that are a constant, that will not vary. If there is a small variation, but these are things that we can count on, such as trip itineraries, our team, great food, project goals, our projects and what we're doing there as every day, our accommodations, general safety tips, what to bring, and what we desire, our desire to help and what we want to do while we're there. These things don't change. If they do, like I said, it would be in minimal. But then there are other things on the unknown list, like travel delays, village dynamics, personal health, project pace results, the outcome of the project, our comfort. You may have an expectation about what that is, and it may be something that you didn't really plan for it, but we're going to do our best to make sure that first and foremost, you're safe. But we can't control the your point of reference as far as what you thought it was going to be. Accidents, unforeseen needs, and that changes that will be happening throughout the whole expedition. And one of the things that we're here to do on this unknown list as Choice Expedition leaders within our country directors is that we make sure that if there are those changes, that we minimize the impact that may cause you discomfort or accidents. And we're very proactive. We have a lot of experience. Our in-country directors have a lot of experience in troubleshooting and fixing the problems. But so basically, what you need to understand while we're there is that there's nothing that we can't fix or that we can make better or that we'll overcome. These are all things that we're trained as Choice Expedition leaders. And I have every confidence on Peggy and myself that we will make sure that we overcome those. Obviously, one of the things that will help us is our cohesiveness as a group to be able to overcome this and be very flexible and say, okay, we have this problem, let's solve it together. Someone may have a good suggestion that we'll employ and things of that nature. But
yeah, that's great. All the stuff that Gabby mentioned to me is what makes these experiences irreplicable and unique and infinitely rare this day and age, where we have instant access to a controlled environment in most of our lives. Oftentimes when we talk about stepping into the unknown, that can cause some uncertainty. And I do want to mention that that doesn't always mean that these unknown conditions are problems. A lot of times these unknown circumstances that are natural in a developing country and economy are also amazing opportunities to learn, to have new experiences. And so that might mean, you know, a project might slow down one day more than we might anticipate. But that might be because the community is interested to have us go out and learn about a particular harvesting technique. And so while we didn't plan on that, it's an amazing opportunity. And so our ask, you know, Gabby said it very well, that their job is really to help you guys navigate these changes. And my ask to you all is that on expeditions, the most success happens when participants kind of shift from being a kind of a passive participant to being a really active co-creator of the experience. And that means lending your advice, observations, suggestions, and really communicating openly, including your discomforts, so that the leadership as a team can navigate those changes. And that's why no matter how many times you might go to Peru, even on the same general itinerary, you know, this experience is going to be really unique. And I think why we're all here. I think we'll turn it over to Peggy to, at a high level, go through the itinerary and kind of walk people through some of those initial steps. And then we might pause after that just to see if there's questions.
Got it. So yeah, we're going to start with the Machu Picchu piece. I think most of you are headed out there, which is really exciting. So you guys will start in Cusco. And I know a handful of people are coming from Utah, but remember Cusco is at elevation, so drink lots of water when you get there. And Cusco is super beautiful, so you'll have some time on Wednesday to check out the town. And by the way, the whole time you're in this section of the trip, you'll be with a tour guide. So everything you're seeing, they'll be taking you around to all the great spots, so you don't have to navigate this portion on your own.
And you'll also be with Gabriella as well.
Right. Gabriella will be there. I sadly will not. And on Thursday, you guys will head out to Aguas Calientes, which is like the base town of Machu Picchu, and you'll head through the Sacred Valley, and there'll be stops along the way to different markets and really cool areas such as Pisac. And again, super gorgeous. I'm very jealous of y'all heading out on this trip. And then Friday, you guys will get up early and head up to Machu Picchu. It will be crowded. It's the busy season, so but that doesn't mean that it still won't be absolutely amazing. So just kind of mentally prepare yourself for crowds. I would recommend bringing a rain jacket, some water, an extra layer, and lots of bug spray. And what's really cool, you can bring your passport to Machu Picchu and get it stamped as if you're like going to another country or something. So if you're into that, bring your passport. And then that night, you guys will be in Aguas Calientes. Oh, no, sorry. Friday, you'll be in Cusco again, and you'll have more time in Cusco. There'll be one final dinner in Cusco to check out the town. And then Saturday, you guys will make your trip from Cusco to Piura via Lima. And we'll all meet up in Piura that night. And I believe most of the flights land in Piura around like 6 or 7 p.m. So we'll all reunite then. Yeah,
that was a great summary. I might just add one thought on the tour section in Cusco, Machu Picchu, is Randy and Itala, together with Gabriella, they'll kind of be your tour team there. And we've worked a lot with Randy. I've traveled with him in this area and rolled around with him actually, even up here in Utah. An amazing team who has a close relationship with Choice. So we'll be in pretty steady contact from now up until the tour itself. And where there's kind of a small private group, you guys will have a little liberty to weigh in on kind of the ebb and flow of your tour together as a group. And Gabby will help kind of facilitate together with Randy what that looks like. And so that might look like everyone wanting to grab dinner a little earlier, or everyone wanting to go off on their own. And so there's some flexibility there in how you guys plan that, which is really nice because the days are long, they're amazing and action packed. And so everyone's going to experience that differently. And one thing I will note, Cusco and Machu Picchu, this is a busy time. But I've been there a number of years in different contexts of control with the park. And it is crowded in certain areas, but they've begun to kind of restrict and control a little bit of how they do that, which actually frees much of the site up without people. And so I actually really enjoyed visiting Machu Picchu more recently than even I did way back in the day when it was kind of a free-for-all. And so there's also going to be some opportunities to do some personal exploration while you're in Machu Picchu. And you'll queue into those opportunities with Randy and the tour team once you guys get in. And we know not everyone's going, so any follow-up questions on this section, I think we can pick that up with the leaders and ourselves kind of after we wrap up the call a little bit. But with that, I'll hand it back to Peggy to kind of continue on through the next phase of the expedition.
All right, so you've all just had like the most amazing experience in Cusco and Machu Picchu, and now we're going to start the next amazing experience in Piura. So depending on if you're doing Machu Picchu or not, we'll all kind of be trickling in on Saturday into Piura, and that evening we'll have like a group dinner and orientation, kind of welcome with all of us and the in-country team as well. And that'll kind of give us our bearings for what to expect for the rest of the week and especially the next day. And then we'll go to bed because we'll all be tired. And then Sunday, we'll get up and we'll head actually to La Arena. And I'll talk about why that location is changed in just a moment. And that is actually closer than Frias. So that'll be a shorter transportation distance for us, which is nice. And so really, so Sunday we'll arrive, there'll be a beautiful warm welcome from the villagers, and we'll get settled in and have dinner and hang out. So really Sunday night through Thursday night, we'll be in the village and focusing on the work project, but also, in community with the villagers, hanging out with each other, playing with the kids, learning what's going on, learning from the project and the in-country team. And Friday we'll be heading out. There will be a farewell in the morning from the villagers, and then we'll be heading back to Piura. And because we're at a closer village, we'll actually have some more wiggle room on Friday. So we're hoping to head to the beach or the coastal area to give you guys some more adventure and to see some more of Peru. So that'll be awesome. And then Friday night, we'll kind of have like our final celebratory dinner and really digest what on earth we just experienced and really celebrate all that we did together. So, and then Saturday, we'll get up, do a little breakfast, I think, which is pretty informal. And Saturday departures just really depend on your personal itinerary at that point. I know some people are staying in Latin America in general, going to other countries. Some people are heading home to the US. So just depends on your own personal trip.
And yeah, great summary there. One thing I would add when you're in Piura, for those who get in earlier on Saturday, as well as those who have a later evening flight, which is probably most folks on that Saturday at the end of the expedition. Mm-hmm. Piura is a really interesting town. You're going to see a couple sides of Peru. Piura is kind of what would be, a larger county seat, city center, where it's not necessarily somewhere that a tourist would go as a destination, but it is somewhere where average Peruvians work, and there's a large economy there around agriculture. And so there's kind of a big, interesting city, and not too big, I should say, but also really quintessential in many respects of northern Peru. And so there's a couple really cool things to see. There's an amazing giant market, and your leaders will kind of coordinate with the team to provide some options for you all on that Saturday if there's downtime. Visiting that market is one of my favorite things to do because there's something of everything for everyone. And so a lot of neat stuff to see. And then another side of Peru, we'll be kind of looking at what a larger city looks like, kind of post some severe flooding. You guys will be staying in a hotel in the city center that was under 6 feet of water a few months ago, and which is hard for me to conceive of having been there. And so there's going to be some interesting reconstruction and kind of rehabilitating going on, and a lot to learn, a lot to observe, and I think that'll stoke kind of a lot of interesting discussions as well. And then you can see right up here, we're between an hour to 2 hours in the La Arena area. That's the larger municipality, and the community that we'll be in, I'll talk about in just a minute, is a little bit further from that. And one thing to note is that it's going to be warm. And you'll look at the temperatures there. This is kind of an average that we're seeing now, and it's likely going to remain consistent, if not get a little warmer by the time you're there. So we're, low 90s, high 80s. Sporadic rain, not a lot. The rainy season is over. But when it does rain, that means it is going to be a little humid. So it's kind of hot, humid in the days. So that's kind of the context where we'll be. And maybe just right there, might stop it for a minute to see if anyone has any questions at a high level on the itinerary. We are going to get into the specifics of what time looks like in the community. So that might answer some of those, but I don't know if anyone's got any questions.
I have a quick question on the Machu Picchu trip. When we arrive in Cusco, how do we get from the airport to the hotel? Do we just get our own taxi, or is there somebody from the expedition that will greet us?
Well, so there's actually a line of donkeys that you will have to, no, I'm kidding. We got you. She's panicking. Mom's panicking here.
No, not at all.
We got you totally covered. Gabrielle, depending on the time, it's likely, once we get everyone's itineraries in, it's likely that as a leader, as a team, you'll be able to coordinate in Lima, because you're all going to arrive probably late at night in Lima and then take a really early morning flight to Cusco, which means you're almost going to be kind of the Walking Dead in the airport that night. And so the group's probably going to meet up there, and Gabby will kind of help coordinate that through the Facebook group as it gets a little closer. And then depending on when your individual flights arrive, some might be on the same flight, some might not. Randy and the tour team will be there right at the airport to pick you up with signs, and they'll likely have on some Choice Humanitarian t-shirts. And so they'll be there. Gabby will be helping coordinate that, and you guys will head straight to the hotel to settle in for a little bit and probably have a little bit of a morning or lunchtime, just quick reboot before you head out on that main exploration part of Cusco. It is an organized tour part, which is definitely amazing to do. We're going to see some of there's a lot of actual ruins and sacred sites in Cusco itself. And so you're going to explore some of that in the afternoon, but again, at the group's pace, and that'll probably pick up around 1 or 2 o'clock. So you'll, at every stage of getting out of a plane, you'll have a team who's got your information waiting for you.
I'd be delighted to, if you need to to send me a message on Facebook and answer questions more in detail. But even if I have to wait there all night, I always make sure
She's done it.
that I wait for everyone, even if there's a delay. I don't leave until I have my group together. I never leave a man down. So just so you know,
I didn't join the Facebook group. Is there any way that I might be able to correspond with you through email?
Of course.
Okay.
It's grostic@msn.com.
And as a follow-up to this orientation call, we can make sure everyone's got each other's contact information. And yeah, the Facebook group is one way to stay in touch, but certainly not the only way. And
okay, great.
One of many tools. So yeah, you're in good hands here, and we'll follow up after that.
And one more thing about that, since Jordan mentioned, once you have my contact, and I'm sure I speak for Peggy, is that you can email me or text me even if it's just something that you have in your mind that's causing you a little hesitate. I mean, as far as being nervous of something, if I don't have the answer, I'll get you the answer. So don't ever think that you're bugging me or anything like that. As we get closer, I know that when I first took my expedition, I wanted a lot of answers. So that's what we're here for.
Great. Thank you so much. I have to sign off. Thank you.
Okay, well, we'll be in touch and we'll send out a recording of this after the call.
Great. Thank you so much.
Hey, great to meet you. Awesome. Well, for those who are still with us, Peggy, just kind of want to add a quick thought on context just for the flood, and then we'll introduce the community.
Yeah, so I think some of you have been following this. If you haven't, there's been some pretty devastating floods happening in the Peru region the last few months, which is why we are headed to a different area than we originally planned. So we're headed to La Arena, which is closer to the coast versus Frias. I mean, logistically, we just can't get there. So it's not accessible. It's not safe for us. So there's been a lot of damage done to this overall region. And because of that, our expedition is going to look a little bit different. The work we're doing is going to be more focused on rehabilitation of some community areas, which is very needed. And it's still going to be really good work. And we all just got to prepare a little bit for that. So it'll be good.
And the area we'll be going to is one of the areas that's actually an existing Choice project area. Choice works in 2 areas in the country, one up in the Altiplano area and then another down towards the coast. And so the Altiplano area is totally inaccessible, but this area in the coast is also one of those that was heavily impacted. So there's a lot of community infrastructure rebuilding that's taking place right now and regrouping, and we'll be plugging into that. So just to note, this is the area before the flood. So it's called Pampa de la Silva, and it's in a broader area called La Arena, and there's a few communities that fit into that area. And so we'll be plugging into that broader area. And it's a dry, temperate, beautiful place. Largely individuals work in agriculture. And one of the things that will be interesting to observe and to learn from is that an entire season of crops and work has just been annihilated. And so there's a lot of rebuilding and a lot of economic disruption that's taken place. And another huge impact that our teams have been sharing with us is that kind of morale took a big hit as a country, but just as communities who are dealing with the challenges of what is rural poverty in a developing country under the best of circumstances, coping. Something like a natural disaster, flood, impacts them at a much higher level. And so the community is very excited, is very motivated. And so this expedition is something that they've been working with Choice regardless, but it's been a real exciting kind of light at the end of a tunnel that is really exciting. Communities are kind of for the first time putting together the idea of, oh my gosh, well, we could celebrate something when they come, and that actually sounds pretty nice. And so that's the general dynamic that you'll be plugging into. From a project perspective, there's going to be kind of 3 core areas. One is again, a lot can happen between now and even the time you go, but there's flood cleanup and restoration taking place. The primary project we'll be supporting is going to be on a community center rehabilitation, including the roof, the walls, the ground, and then a lot of rebuilding of kind of family level community gardens. And so pretty diverse set of projects. And as all expeditions go, the interaction isn't limited to a project itself, but rather kind of all the cultural components. And I'll let Gabriella kind of talk about once we're out in the community, day to day, what is that going to look like?
Thank you, Jordan. So as far as the food, it's all geared to the normal diet that we usually would have here in the States. And also we would if you have a special needs as far as something that you can't eat, or if you're allergic to something, we would certainly need to know that ahead of time so that we make sure that you don't have that. But there's always, the food preparation is very hygienic, and they sterilize everything that we have there. So in all of the expeditions that I've led, we've never had someone who gotten sick. That doesn't mean that you may have an upset stomach, but nothing that we'll take care of that with, you know, some medication. But as far as, we have 3 meals a day, and this is a great opportunity that I always tell our expeditioners to not to always sit with the same person, to try to mingle and try to get to know the in-country directors. We ask them to sit with us, and that is one of the major components that Jordan has been talking about throughout this presentation is that very thing. It's like you get to know a lot, just as if you were with your family and you're visiting. We take this opportunity with our downtime, and I think that's the most enriching experience culturally that we can have. One thing that I wanted to mention is that sometimes our expeditioners feel bad that the other people that are outside are not eating and things like that, but this is something that we'll overcome together. It's just what it is. But I assure you that once we're there, all these things, if you have questions or concerns, you can talk to us about it, and we'll do our best to explain it. As far as the living condition, one more thing about the eating is that if you have snacks or things that you want to bring, like power bars, if you can bring those yourself in the things that you pack, because sometimes, you know, you may be accustomed to just having a breakfast bar. So if that's what you need, then you should bring that yourself. As far as the living conditions, if you can see the sort of like the entry, there's a table there. This is basically what it looks like. It's like camping. And so you need to have everything basically so that you can camp. It's very safe. One of the major things that we do is bug spray all of our things. And we will have a list of the things that you need to bring that are suggestions and must-haves. And this will be the most important part of your packing so that you can maximize your experience while you're there. We will, if you forget something, most likely we won't be able to buy something there. So that's very important to keep in mind, so that when you pack, you bring the essentials rather than bringing more clothes as opposed to a mattress or something that will make you more comfortable, because you will be tired and you will be sleeping here. So you have to bear in mind, what will I need so I can make myself comfortable and have a good night's rest? So those are questions that you can only answer. We have suggestions, but these are the things that works for us, and we'll talk about those in detail.
And one thing I would just add on the packing side, so because of the flooding, mosquitoes are much more prevalent than they would normally be. And there's not a primary concern right now of an outbreak malaria or yellow fever. At this stage, is not a concern. Dengue fever, which is not something you can get a vaccine for. It's something you just kind of have to muscle through if you get it, and it can be very challenging. That has been more pervasive, which is expected if there's been heavy flooding. So mosquito prevention is just a big part of preparation for this experience. And hey, how you doing? Good, welcome. Oh yeah, all right. I remember. Yeah, I met you at we got Daniel here.
Hi, Daniel.
So washing your clothes and your materials in permethrin, which you can get at any camping store, will be really important. Having maybe a more intense mosquito repellent than you might normally, roll around with will be important. And then our teams will set up they have some larger group kind of mesh nets that will be draped down over the group sleeping environments, everyone on their individual pads and sleeping bags, and a tarp kind of laid down on the bottom. But we encourage everyone to bring, it's almost like a $15 mosquito net. Janice, it's the same ones we all had in Kenya. And you can get them online at Amazon or at any camping store. They pack up real small, just in case there are gaps. And as we kind of ebb and flow, every space is different on what works best sleeping wise. And we want to make sure everyone's prepared the best that they can be sleeping wise, just to avoid any, issues with mosquitoes. But that said, our team, it does quite a bit to make sure the space is secure, safe, obviously dry. And there will be kind of a porta potty style latrine. And then there will be the opportunity for showering, to heat up water with solar showers, supplement that with some warmer water, and a private space to bathe if you want to. And it will be hot, it will be steamy, but it honestly isn't always the most convenient or comfortable. So we'll let you guys as a group kind of navigate that.
I will say one more thing about the mosquitoes. If you're very susceptible to the bites and you need a special medication if you get bitten, then don't forget to bring that, because that will make you more and more comfortable than your average Benadryl. If you need something stronger than that, I would suggest please bring it. Now let's talk about working in our projects. The projects, every day once we're there, we will talk to our in-country directors, and we'll get as much information as I need and as they can provide me and Peggy about what we will be doing that day. As soon as we have that information, we will relay that information, and we will tell you how we're going to go about accomplishing that task. During that working time, it's important to understand that that's where your cultural experience continues, is that most likely you'll be working with the villagers as well. They'll be helping us, there will be, and so that is a perfect opportunity to just be there. Even if you don't speak the language, exchange smiles and learn from them. I mean, that's one of my favorite parts. Whenever we're working and trying to build something, you see their faces, that just makes it all worth it while we're there, and we work even harder. There are workhorses, most of the people that I've ever worked for, and so they're very motivational to me when I go. I feel like when I'm ready to pass out, I keep going. So like I said, one of the things that Peggy and I will try to do is figure out what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, so that we are very well informed about what you can and cannot do. And if there's a day in particular that you don't want, that you can't because you're sore, there's other things that you can do, like maybe stay and play with the kids, or do a lighter load and follow the team. So it's not a set. Say for example, one day we carried bricks for a whole day, and you say, well, I can't do it the next day. We will find something to do. So this is a perfect opportunity for me to stress the fact that communication is paramount. We don't read minds. I don't know what you need unless you tell me. And once you tell me, I will make sure that we find something that will make you feel like you're participating as well. And so I'm very accessible. There's nothing, I don't ever want you to feel like just because you can't do that, I will draw inferences from that. It's not like that at all. We always have that. And so that's very important that you communicate to us your needs. Another thing that I want to mention with working is you have to be flexible, and you also have to be patient. That it may seem sometimes that we're not working really, really hard, and that's all we're there to do. And oh my gosh, I'm idling here. I feel like I should be doing something. Those are perfect opportunities again to talk among us, or or just talk about the village that we are, because we will have those times where we might be waiting for some material, or we might be waiting for the paint and things like that. So flexibility is going to be crucial for us to feel like we're doing all that we can. Let's see, just trying to. One of the things I wanted to mention is that whenever we're working with these villagers, we feel like we tend to feel sorry for them. We have that. Well, you have to think about what is everybody's poverty, but we're there, and you have to really embrace the project that we're doing, that we're always going to be helping them, and you're going to learn just as much as they're going to be learning from you. You're going to be learning from them. And so I encourage you all to always keep that in mind, that just because they have less, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're not just or as happier than we are. Sometimes the progress and the jobs that are doing, we may not finish them, but that doesn't mean that another team from Choice is going to be finishing them. But just so you know that we will find when we started, don't feel like, oh, I wish I could have seen the end, but it may not be possible. Again, flexibility is important, that we might be shifting from one type of job one day and then another type, or we may be able to finish one whole project. Whenever we're going on the field, one of the most important things that I can't stress enough is that you have to make sure that you're responsible for all the gear that you need. If you need gloves, if you need your bug spray, if you need your water, those are things that you're responsible for. We'll talk about it before we leave, but we've had instances where you can, and once you're there, you can't participate because you don't have the necessary equipment that you're supposed to bring. So we'll remind you, but make sure that just bear in mind that that is very important. Let's see. Another thing is, like, if you have questions during the entire time that we're working, this is something that if you want to know more about what we're doing and why we're doing it, and I'm not right there, or Peggy's not there to answer, I don't ever want you to forget what you wanted to ask me, because I feel that if you know what we're doing and why we're doing it, just instead of just putting bricks together, if you know why we're there and what happened, that gives it more meaning to what we're doing. And I will find the answers, and that's a good time when we get back together and say, you know, we were doing this because of this, and all the questions and answers that you have will make a difference in how much progress and self-realization that we have once we've done the job. Okay. Now, playing time, did we? Sorry, I'm just trying to read my notes. So, like I said, the cultural exchange, working together, it's a very important part. We always want to feel that we're useful, right? But we don't ever want you to feel that that's all you're there for. One of my most favorite things to do, literally, is just sit there, and if I can paint girls' nails, I could do that all day long. And their faces, I mean, those are the things that really stay in your heart and in your mind, is that nothing compares to that, in my opinion. So it's very important when you pack your things. We can play soccer, beading, coloring, jump ropes, and we'll tell you all this list of things and suggestions, drawings, even sharing the pictures that you have taken during the entire day. They love to see the pics on your phone, or if you have a tablet. Those are things that are really, really fun to do and just bring smiles to everyone's faces. One more thing, we're always open to new ideas. If I see someone, if part of the communication is that, like I said, I always learn new things and better ways to do things. I mean, I have a way, but it's not the way. So if you have a suggestion, if you see me or Peggy doing something that you think, hey, I've thought about this, or this worked for me, or I've been in another expedition, how about we try this? By all means, please don't ever keep it to yourself. I've learned that these are the best times that that can work for the group. And so just want to make sure that you know we are very accessible to all of those things. At times when we're doing projects, we forget what we're learning. And so always keep an open mind and say, what am I supposed to learn from this experience? And take a few minutes and say, okay, I'm doing this project today. What am I supposed to be learning? Is this really what I wanted to accomplish? And if you feel that you need more information to get there, like I said, let us know. We will celebrate every day our team accomplishments as a team, but with the villagers. And even if it was just painting a wall, we could look at it, take a picture all together and say, see what we did? It doesn't have to be a huge building. But as a group, remember, we're all there together, and so we celebrate together everything that we do. And part of that, when we end our day, one of my most favorite parts as well is sharing our experiences. This is where we get to know one another. This is where we say, I can't believe this particular thing made me feel this way. And we'll be doing a lot of crying, or maybe I'll be doing all the crying because I get very emotional in this part of the day. And if you want also, I encourage you to bring a journal and jot down your thoughts of what you learned from there, because as the years go by, or if you're doing an expedition, these are things that you're going to want to curl up at night when you feel sad or when you're having a bad day. Let's see, one more thing. I think, like I said, nothing is ever worth it unless we're learning from it. And remember and be mindful that we're there also to serve, and we need to be flexible and have a sense of humor. Compassion and empathy, not just for the villagers, is important, but it's also important in our team, for us, for you. We should always be mindful of that. How do I feel? If you're working with someone, just always lend a hand if you feel that they need to do that. So did we talk about the new gifts?
Yeah, that's great. I'll kind of dive into that from Joyce. So a lot of components to the trip, and that span a lot of different types of activities. And in my experience, work doesn't prioritize over the learning, which doesn't prioritize over the playing, which means it's a very symbiotic experience. And Gabriella just hit home the core points that you see up here. You'll revisit these a lot as a leadership team. Flexible, have fun, and pay attention to yourself and to others. And if we do that, we do pretty well. There are a couple core rules that are just essential to effectively being invited into a community. These are not negotiable for Choice Humanitarian. So first is no individual gift giving. What that means is no candies for kids, no handouts of bouncy balls at an individual level. What it does mean is that we can bring things to facilitate interaction, like frisbees, soccer balls, fingernail polish, face paint, bubbles, sports equipment. We can take those out, play with those during the day, bring those back, and at the end of the expedition, we can leave those resources collectively to the school administrators, who can then utilize those as a community. And so this is essential. It's not always easy, but it's very, very important. And then second is, Choice is a non-denominational, apolitical, nonprofit international development organization. And that's who we are. And so that means we have stakeholders and donors and supporters both on this side of the organization who are heading out into the field, and also in the communities that we work with and in our teams. And so it's really important that we keep our topics of conversation, particularly post, a wild global year of elections. And the fact that, the organization's based in Utah means we have people from all different faiths, all different political viewpoints. And the experience is most conducive when we focus on the things that we do have in common, because those topics, whether politics or others, can be topics that start to divide lines and kind of separate the group. And so it's really important that we keep that between the group and between us and the community. And then lastly, no promises that we can't fulfill while we're right there in the community with the approval of our in-country team. And that's really important, because particularly in the aftermath of a flood, there's a lot of international outpour. And so there's a lot of handing out happening, and there's a lot of promises being made, and people are in really challenging circumstances, which the last thing we want to do is compromise the trust and commitment that a community's put forward by making promises we can't keep. And that is not easy. And it's as simple as, saying you'll add someone on Facebook to share a photo, and as complex as, saying you might help someone research or study school options. And really important, if you have questions or concerns, to talk to your leaders and the team, because there might be an appropriate way to stay connected or have an impact, but through the right channels. So those are the 3 key rules. And just as a summary, there are no passport or visa requirement. There's a passport requirement, but no visa requirement. There's also no required immunizations we recommend that everyone visit a travel clinic and get up to speed on your standard international travel vaccinations. They may recommend yellow fever. It is not a primary risk where we're at, but it can be a risk. And so if that's something you want to consider, you will not be worse off for getting it. And it lasts for 10 years. Malaria is also not traditionally a primary concern, but with the rise of mosquitoes, can be. And so an international travel clinic can prescribe you a variety of different treatments for that. And we recommend that you go to a clinic, not only for those recommended vaccinations, but also to get the prescriptions you might need for general international travel. General antibiotic, typically called Z-Pak, as well as a antibiotic more oriented around the digestive system called Cipro. So those are kind of common things. Choice expects every participant to come prepared with their stock required prescriptions and also over-the-counter medicines. We are familiar with maybe particular medical concerns that you might have. Our in-country team is as well, but it's really important that everyone come prepared with what they might need. So stop maybe here. We've got just a few on here, so we can certainly answer any questions, but the rest, for those who are watching, if you have questions on any of that, feel free to email your leaders, shoot a phone call. Again, this will be sent out with that contact information. Cash is usually a question people might ask, particularly those going to do the tour. Meals are generally included in the tour, particularly if we're eating together as a group. That will be included for the couple times when people want to eat out casually. That would be on your own. I would recommend getting a couple $100s out of the ATM upon arrival at the airport in Lima, and you'll be able to get more cash in Cusco as well as in Piura. So traveling with a couple $100s, some of it stashed, some of it on hand is a great way to go about that. And the plugs are the same, but you'll want to make sure you've got any device that has a natural 220 to 110 span so that you don't fry it. Any questions? Janice? Aubrey?
I have a question, more of just a comment. And I told Peggy this earlier today. I just don't know anybody in the East who doesn't have their yellow fever vaccine. I called 5 different travel clinics, and apparently there's a national shortage of yellow fever vaccines, primarily in the East. So I will not be getting a yellow fever vaccine, but I will be taking malaria pills and doing all of the other precautionary measures. But not any questions. I think it's just a lot to digest. I'm very excited to go on the trip, and I'm happy to know more about what we're doing, in more specifics.
Yeah, and Peggy and Gabby will be sharing updates as they go. And as I mentioned, I'll actually be in Peru this next week, and so I'll be able to come back and I'll definitely pass along to the group a little report that's pretty fresh from the area that you guys will be. So you can look forward to that for sure.
And we can share all the resources, Aubrey, on the additional, anti-mosquito bite stuff, like Jordan mentioned. I don't even know how to pronounce it. I've never heard of it. The coating on your clothing. Yeah, so we'll send out stuff like that and the mosquito.
And that's in the packing list. Yeah, you'll be able to. Okay. Which I think is right. I've gotten a snippet from the Peru appendix.
Okay.
And this will kind of highlight some of those items there.
Gotcha. Yeah. Would you recommend, just as a general question then, even though it's going to be very hot, should I wear long clothing just as a precautionary measure for the mosquitoes?
I would, yeah.
Okay.
Just a quick dry pant, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
I mean, Gabby, you've been in Guatemala a lot with hotter temperatures.
Yeah, I always wear like very light pants because also, I mean, wherever we're working, then scratches or things like that you will normally be working.
Gotcha. Okay.
And Janice, you had a question? So, not likely. Younger kids might have conversational movie English, unlike Kenya, where English was somewhat predominantly taught in some of the younger schools. Not so much in Peru. So Spanish is going to be the primary language. That said, between the in-country team and your expedition leaders, most participants who head out with us to Latin America, where most of our trips are, the language is just so not an issue or a barrier. So.
And like I said, if there's someone you want to talk to in the group, because I know that's always really neat, or you want to talk to one of the women or the men, or you want to ask them some questions, just pull us to the side if we're not terribly busy doing something, or just find us. I'd be more than happy. I probably want to be. I'm very accessible to that as well.
So it is likely that Days for Girls is going to be a part of this trip. With the area where we've shifted, the Peru team will actually be doing one in the general area this next week. And so the Peru team has moved around some of its resources. The Days for Girls program in Peru is traditionally up in the Meseta Andina, which is a different area where their health facilitators kind of totally cut off. But they're making it work for this next one. And so they've kind of teed that up based off of that experience to see if we can incorporate it again. So.
And if you want to discuss that with, if it does happen, what I have done with Days for Girls, if you wanted to be the one that gives the training, I could just interpret it, not just give the training. That's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Janice participated a lot. We did a lot in Kenya.
So.
Will we be carrying supplies then?
We would. If we do, we would, yeah.
Do you know, we're arriving in Lima and going to Lake Titicaca area in Cusco.
Okay.
And then Piura. So I don't want to carry extra bags around. Do you know if there's any way to leave a bag in Lima and pick it up? Just
I can see if there's a locker option. I haven't looked into that, but we can definitely check. I would almost be more inclined to see if we could work something out for those who might go directly down. Just take it and have it waiting for you. That might be an option. If they're Utah based.
That would be awesome.
Another dumb question is, do we have any telephone or Wi-Fi?
So we'll definitely have telephone. If you've got an international plan, telephone reception, you'll have that in Cusco. Where are you going in the Lake Titicaca area? Oh, awesome. You'll have it there. You'll have it in Piura. And we're not so far out. There's a chance you might get decent cell reception. I'll ask.
But also, if we don't, for whatever reason, for those the people that you leave at home, we'll always have a contact phone number of how they can get a hold of you while we're there.
Yeah, and our team will have, they'll have their ability to contact you. So.
Do we know the size of the group? Is it still flexible?
We do still have space. The group is about 22.
And most are going to Machu Picchu?
Yeah, I believe so. A little over half. Yeah, and I guess I could mention, those who aren't here, a significant amount, right, on the call. We've got a couple families coming. Shauna, who mentioned, her boys. And so we've got a handful of teenagers. We've got individual travelers. There's a couple other individuals from, I think, the Feel Good community, too, who aren't here. So it ain't just the four of us. We've got a big group, and we look forward to meeting everyone out there. And even though not everyone will be coming on the Cusco tour portion. Cusco Machu Picchu is not that cool. We'll be fine. We'll all meet up in Piura, and they will do their best not to share too much of their experience with us. But the group will really gel well together, and part of the leader's job and your job as participants is to be open and invest in that. And I've never been on an experience where I haven't left with friends quickly converting to kind of a hybrid family relationship pretty quick. It's amazing what happens there. And so and that's part of the fun. That's the other dynamic that is totally outside of the community and the project and the country, is who you're traveling with. So good stuff. We don't have any other questions. Might kind of sign it off there with the invitation that this isn't your only chance to ask questions, and that in response to this, you'll get some follow-up emails with contact info and things like that from your leaders, and they'll be doing some phone calls once we get everyone's information on itineraries and things like that, 2 weeks to 10 days before the trip, just to start to tease through a little bit of any remaining questions that you might have. So, all right, I think we'll sign off.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I know that you wanted a t-shirt, so what size do you wear?
I'll have to check what my plain one is, so I'll let you know.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, see ya. Thanks.